Imagine being a single mom to a son with autism and epilepsy. You're working hard, trying to keep a roof over your head, and you're told, as we were, that help is coming in 11 years. At the time, we were told the average wait for someone like him was 11 years. He becomes an adult in 35 days. At this point, we don't know when he'll ever move off that wait list. The waiting list had grown, and that there were folks who had been on it as long as 13 years in our state.
Our next witness is Mr. Nick Stehle. He is Vice President of Communications at the Foundation for Government Accountability. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Mr. Staley.
Thank you. Chairman Johnson, Ranking Member Blumenthal, and members of the committee, thank you for hosting this important hearing. I'm Nick Stehle, Vice President of Communications at the Foundation for Government Accountability. But today, I'm here as a dad. My family and I have experienced the shortfalls of the Medicaid program as it currently exists on a deeply personal level. Now more than ever, the Medicaid program desperately needs reform to promote work over welfare, protect the truly needy, and root out waste, fraud, and abuse. Medicaid's ballooning enrollment has left the most vulnerable behind. Across the nation, more than 700,000 individuals, most of whom have intellectual or developmental disabilities, are stuck on Medicaid waiting lists for needed home and community-based services. The average wait for these services can last nearly 16 years in some states. As you might imagine, many don't have that long. Remember, every dollar that goes to an able-bodied adult on Medicaid who can and should be working is a dollar that doesn't go to the people the program was intended to help. These aren't just numbers on a sheet of paper. These are real people, including kids with intellectual or developmental disabilities. Real people like my 17-year-old son, Luke, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it here today, but I think you'll be able to see him on the screen. There he is. And I'm sure he'll be able to watch the video later. Luke has severe autism and epilepsy. And though he probably had his first seizures in the womb, the first seizure we saw was at just 7 weeks. I held my tiny newborn son as he seized. It took my wife, Leanne, and me taking him to multiple hospitals before someone finally believed us. Turns out 7-week-old babies don't have seizures very often. It's always serious. 16 years later, we finally learned why. A rare gene mutation linked to profound intellectual disability and intractable epilepsy. Luke is a sweet and happy young man. He enjoys video games, Star Wars, hunting for diamonds with his grandparents at Crater of Diamonds State Park in Arkansas, and fiercely loves his siblings, Peter, Joel, and Isabel. A couple of years ago, we sought out help through a home and community-based services waiver so that he can get the critical Medicaid services he needs to be a part of the community, and so that he can receive in-home care when my wife and I can't be there. At the time, we were told the average wait for someone like him was 11 years. He becomes an adult in 35 days. At this point, we don't know when he'll ever move off that wait list. It's easy to talk about Medicaid reform. It's another thing entirely to live it. I see firsthand how able-bodied adults, 62% of whom don't work, are siphoning away resources that can and should go to fund services for the most vulnerable. These groups move to the front of the line while kids like Luke wait years for services they urgently need. It's not easy to talk about these things in front of the whole world. It's quite painful. And the truth of the matter is that our family is going to be okay. Luke has 2 parents who adore him. He has 3 siblings who love him as well. And he has grandparents who live nearby, and they're there to help him at the drop of a hat. He's cared for, he's loved, and he's safe. So why am I here? It's because my family's story is not unique. It's the story of people in our community and thousands of others across the country who don't have the voice or the resources, financial, family, or otherwise. Imagine being a single mom to a son with autism and epilepsy. You're working hard, trying to keep a roof over your head, and you're told, as we were, that help is coming in 11 years. This kind of help may be the only thing keeping your child from being institutionalized, but waiver services are out of reach. Meanwhile, your state is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on able-bodied adults who move to the front of the line ahead of your child. Does that sound right? Reform is not a choice, it is a moral imperative. Choosing not to act puts the truly needy last while taxpayers foot the bill for an ever-growing program that no longer meets its mission. Now is the time to set Medicaid on a sustainable track, and one that protects the individuals it was intended to serve rather than sending them to the back of the line. I'm grateful for this committee's work. I'm grateful for Senator Johnson's commitment to refocus resources on those who need them most. And there's a lot of work to be done, and the truly needy cannot afford to wait. Thank you.
When did you first really discover this perverse incentive? I'd imagine you kind of signed up for home health care, and you just probably were somewhat, why can't we get on it? I mean, when did this kind of dawn on you, what Medicaid expansion was doing and how it impacted your son and your family?
Sure. Yeah, so when we first expanded Medicaid in Arkansas, I called my state senator and I said, I want to know that when you guys do this, you're not going to do anything to harm these truly needy populations. And at the time, I didn't know anything about it. I'd never worked on healthcare policy. And so all I wanted to know about was the TEFRA waiver program, which is just basic Medicaid services. And my state senator said, don't worry, we got that covered. You're going to be fine. Well, that part was fine. But what I didn't know at the time, and what I didn't really know until some number of years shortly before we applied for waiver, was that the waiting list had grown, and that there were folks who had been on it as long as 13 years in our state. And in fact, there's one case of a young woman named Skylar who had a traumatic brain injury that resulted in neurological damage, and she spent almost her entire life on that waiting list, very nearly died on it, passed away when she was 18 years old, sadly. But we see this time and time again where people are literally dying on those waiting lists.
Are the single adults on the waiting list?
They are
not. They
not.
get put in the front of the line?
They go to the front of the line.
So able-bodied adults go to the front of the line as disabled children wait, languish without those services for a decade or more.
That's accurate.